We're going to continue the series to explore marvels and miraculous things that are right immediately around us that we may not be aware of, to expand our mind and open our eyes to the wonderful world that we live in. As I said in this series before, for example, on how we can send a text message or a photograph to, for example, Australia or Argentina, and it will arrive there within 1 second, 1.5 seconds. How is that so? There are so many amazing things going on right around us, but in that podcast, I was going into how the universal force of the electromagnetic field which surrounds us enables us to send text messages and indeed photographs through the electromagnetic field. Today I'm going to look at eyes and how we're able to see this wonderful world around us and the amazing miracle and marvel of eyesight. Of course, eyesight depends on light, and light is, as we've said, an electromagnetic wave. Now, light has a spectrum. A spectrum is, for example, if you imagine the rainbow, you have red, orange, yellow, green, does it go? Blue, indigo, violet, Richard, yeah. And so the red spectrum is a lower frequency, and the going over to the blue and the violet is the higher frequency. And of course, light travels incredibly fast. I mean, as we've said, that light, the electromagnetic wave of light can travels at 182,000 miles a second, 222,000 kilometers a second. So the frequency of, for example, blue in the visual, the light range of light, and the colors we see are all to do with the visual light range. Blue, the frequency of the ups and downs, the oscillations, is between 620 trillion ups and downs per second, and 670 trillion ups and downs per second. So we're talking about amazing frequency and speed, as indeed as the speed of light, much as Einstein, is extraordinary. So light is, for example, to see blue, the color blue, or red at the lowest of the lot, at perhaps 400 trillion ups and downs per second, i.e. the wave of light, is just phenomenal. Now, how does it work? How are we able to see the color blue or identify the color red? Well, we open our eyes and light floods through our eyes. We receive light as almost a signal. It comes through the cornea. It's called, there are a few little words that we can bandy about with, but the words are not key, but let's use them. You don't have to remember them, of course. We're all interested in just appreciating the amazing world that we have around us. So it reaches the cornea. The cornea is the first outer layer, and it's called an aqueous humor, it's called, which is a little watery cavernous section, full, in solid, but it's full of a liquid called aqueous humor. Goes through there, and then the light, both of our eyes simultaneously reaches after the cornea, it reaches the iris. The iris then orientates these electromagnetic light beams it orientates them and twists them through the pupil of our eye, the central black. Now this journey of light enables us to see this blue lunchbox I have. It goes through the pupil, the light, the electromagnetic wave, and in between 400 trillion ups and downs frequency a second, sort of 780 trillion, which is like the ultraviolet. So we're talking about things going on around us which are just mind-blowing. Now, it then goes through the iris, and then it goes through what's called it's called the turpid humus. The aqueous humus is a liquidy thing, and then there's a more tepid kind of humus it goes through in order to arrive at the retina at the back. So it's going through several things, like a camera lens really. Cornea, aqueous humor, then it reaches the iris, it soaks through the pupil, then it goes through another liquid which leaves me at the mind, which slips me at the moment, but it's something like a turpid humor, and then it arrives at the retina. Now, if that wasn't exciting enough, then when they reach the retina, the retina is filled with what are called photoreceptive cells. Photoreceptor cells, little tiny cells, millions and millions of them. Well, there are 10 million what's called cone cells, and there are 120 million rod cells. Now the cones are receptive to colors and light, including white. White is just a combination of all the colors assembled. So if you mix, in terms of vision, if you have blue, red, green, and everything else, all at an equal level of if you like, brightness, you'll get white. So white is included. It's a spectrum of all of them mixed up together. Now, the cone cells are photoreceptor cells, and then the rod cells allow us to see dark. So at night, when there are no colors, we can distinguish things, and black is key to all the other colors anyway, but they're dealt with in the rod cells. Shaped more like rods, and cones are shaped slightly more like a cone, the way actual cell is. Now these cells are a type of nerve cell. A nerve cell is another word for it, is a neuron. Now, the cone cells are made up of red cone cells, red cone cells, blue cone cells, and green cone cells. It's called a trichromatic color scheme, if you like. Red, green, and blue. You may have seen these in your printer cartridges, red, green, and blue. Anyway, so they have little names. You try and remember. Yeah, the S cone deals with the blue frequency of light, and the L cone deals with red frequency of light, and the M cone deals with green. And every different color has a slightly different frequency, dealing in trillions of fluctuations. Fluctuations. They're at different levels. Every different color has a slightly different frequency in the range, which is called a spectrum. So light comes through the retina. It is photoreceptive cells. Now, in order to trap this electromagnetic wave, because we're still talking about an electromagnetic wave, as in light is one of the electromagnetic waves, and as in the other podcast we mentioned that we have radio waves, microwaves, infrared waves, the visual light which we see waves, then you have ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma. Okay, so they're different frequencies. Light is kind of in the middle of them all. And so we're still talking about electromagnetic light waves. Now, in order for our eye to trap these electromagnetic waves, because it has to deal with them, process them, it then hits retinol. Retinol is one half of the photoreceptor cell, as they're called, in the retina, okay? Another word for them is pigment. So, light, electromagnetic light, hits these photoreceptor cells. To trap the light, it's called retinol. Retinol is modified vitamin A. Have you ever heard of vitamin A? Oh dear. If you've heard of vitamin A, we'll deal with that afterwards. If you've ever heard of vitamin A, you get it from carrots and another thing else, beta-carotene. Retinol is a modified version of vitamin A. And so that is a vitamin, and that allows us to trap light. Now, in order to convert that light into an electric signal, and from an analog, light is it's called an analog signal. All electromagnetic waves are analog signals, whatever the word is. It's called analog. In America, it's spelled A-N-A-L-O-G. In English, it's spelled A-N-O-L-O-G-U. Different thing. And in, Canada and so forth. Anyway, so the vitamin A, retinol, is able on the frequency, it's able to trap the electromagnetic wave, and then it is adjoined to what's called O-spin. And in the rod cells, it's called rhodospin, and in the cone cells, it's called photospin or iodospin. Two different types. So these O-spins allow to convert the electromagnetic wave into an electric charge. Now we've got to go from the electric kind of turns it into electric signal. We've got to go that to send it down the optic nerve so our brain can see it's blue or it's green or it's yellow. So it reaches a thing called O-spins. Now O-spins are produced by the body. They're called proteins, which are produced by the body. The retinol is given to us by our mothers at birth, or we get it from the environment because our bodies are unable to produce vitamins. So the retinol traps the light, and the O-spins, whatever it's called, are chromophores. They are able to process the electromagnetic signal into an electric signal, i.e., to a frequency, and then that passes is connected to called a bipolar cell. Nothing to do with a psychological character called bipolar, a bipolar mind, two polars. They're called bipolar cells. Now, bipolar cells have a thing called glutamate in them, and also the photoreceptor cells of the cones, the O-spin and the vitamin bit. The photoreceptor cell has glutamate in it as well, and then it's connected to the bipolar cell, two cells, and the bipolar cell also has glutamate in it. Now, what is glutamate? Well, glutamate is something that responds to the messaging from light. Now, light traveling and received and interpreted by the O-spin will then, like a switch, like a tic-tac, a switch, will turn on or off. And it is a neurotransmitter. And so light will turn on or on off the signaling of this thing called glutamate. Now, it's pretty easy. Light comes in the eye, as I've mentioned, through the retina. The retinol in the cells in the eye, the cone cells, is a vitamin that was able to trap the frequency of the light, and then the next bit that's attached to the O-spin is to process that messaging into an electric signal. It's also got, and then it responds to the next cell along, which is the intermediary cell called the bipolar cell, and the bipolar cell is able to turn off, on or off, the message to create a nervous signal to travel through the optic nerve to the brain. So this turning on and off in the bipolar cell is critical. It's like a gatekeeper. So it turns on and off what? It turns on and off the frequency of the blue light, electromagnetic light. It then turns it off and interprets the signal sent by the O-spin whether to turn on or off the frequency, so it creates an electric signal, and that electric signal is then converted into something that is readable and transferable through the 10 million optic nerves that go through the optic nerve to the brain, and our brain then interprets all that. There's a journey of light, and our eyes and our minds are transmitting and receiving all of these amazing images from the world around us. What are amazing things that you can see? Some people might appreciate color. A child, a mother, a girl, a man, a cow, a giraffe, a tiger, anything. We live in this amazing world, and we're not alone. Every other animal that has eyes, especially mammals, are involved in this tapestry of light and being able to have retinas and irises and photoreceptor cells, which are connected to bipolar like a switches on and off, and then it goes through millions of cells as electric pulses through ganglions and synapses, which, remember, nerve cells, not roundish, they're kind of longish. They have one part is like composed of different arms called dendrites, and then they have a long bit and it goes to a synapse. So the electric signal goes through there and a chemical response connects to synapses. It's pretty remarkable. So I can say the sky's blue, or I can say, boringly, I can say my canteen is blue. You see? I mean, it's phenomenal how the electromagnetic field, which moves at the speed of light, 182,000 miles a second, can be trapped by the modified vitamin A retinol and focused through my retina into these photoreceptor cells. They're called photoreceptor cells because they receive photons, and we can talk about a photography, but photons are the massless particles of light and the electromagnetic spectrum, if you like. So they're called the quanta of the electromagnetic spectrum. So our eyes are able to turn read the photons, the number of photons are delivering the frequency of the waves, and the electromagnetic waves that are all around us. So our eye can trap these light traveling at 186,000 miles a second. And it can interpret that, and it can then transfer that into an electric signal that our optic nerve can then deliver to the brain because of the bipolar frequency, and turning an analog, a light signal into an electric signal with the electrons that travel through the cells. Of course, our cells are made up of millions and millions of atoms, and each individual atom is surrounded by a number of electrons depending on its atomic number. You know, so if there's something is an atomic number of 8, it will have 8 of these electrons going around it, and tends to have 8 protons inside and 8 neutrons inside. Usually it's a balanced mixed. I always wonder how people can kill themselves. I was reading the other day about 2 army. He was a lieutenant general in the British Army, you know, suffered from war, killed himself. Member of the royal family, Windsor the other day, put a gun to his head, and, you know, member of the royal family, the Duke of Kent. How is it that in America, 49,000 people every year, 49,000 kill themselves? How is it in the UK, around 8,000 people want to kill themselves? What is it that society does to us that can just take us away from the beautiful, magical, amazing people that we are? I'm just talking about eyes. If we realized how it costs so little to expand our horizons and open our minds to this amazing world around us. So often we will get caught up, as I always use the allegory of the idea of the wheel and the hamster, the rodent running around the wheel, always running, never, no, it never stops. The Matrix and this endless bombardment of visual imagery and ideas from other people and channels of coming in at us from TV, and it's an endless drama. And we are the dramatis personae, the people that are fed this, and we often don't know how to escape, to be free, to be happy. And life is not always a happy experience. Life is full of so much sadness and joy. But love is more powerful than hate. Happiness is more powerful than sadness. We must overcome sadness and tragedy in our lives, and never become a victim of the negative side of life. Because, as I said, love is more powerful than hate, and joy is more powerful than sadness. The eyes are one part of our amazing body. I mean, one day we'll get into how cells work, but we're interacting with this world all around us. So if I'm going to later go for a walk and notice and see so many things, we surround ourselves and connect with nature, go for walks and appreciate this wonderful world we have, you know, send a text message to someone, and the magic of being able to send a message at 186,000 miles a second. The ability for us to be able to trap this 186,000 mile an hour light, and then to transfer that we can read and manage through an optic nervous signal is extraordinary. The other element of these podcasts in this little group is the sending and receiving of messages using our mobile phones, using the electromagnetic field of 186,000 miles a second, or if you like, 220,000 kilometers a second. So the third one is how plants process they photosynthesize, or they deal with the photons in the electromagnetic spectrum, how plants process light and use light to manufacture seeds, bushes, the food we eat, seeds, and then the carbon and the petroleum that we consume and need to consume, which has all come from trees and plants. All of it. So light and plants is and how plants process this energy. Remember that the electromagnetic waves is one of the 4 fundamental forces of the universe. Gravity, strong force, nuclear force, weak nuclear force, we'll go about that later, and the electromagnetic force. We live in an environment of force. Never let other forces of people and ideas let you wake up and enjoy this amazing, amazing world that we live in. So I look forward to the next podcast, and if you're interested in this little mini-series, do of course find the one on sending and receiving photographs via your mobile phone and receiving on your radio, and then also the one on how plants capture and process light. Thank you for your time, and I hope that we can keep on being appreciative and awakening to this glorious universe that is full of so much love and joy and happiness, and it's so great to be alive. Every day I've got to remind myself how good, what a miracle it is to be here and to be able to talk to you. Sounds a bit corny, but let's leave it there. I've got to get back to my green tea minus a straw. I'll have to pick that up later. Cheers.